Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Dr. John Demartini. Thanks for being on the show, John.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am looking forward to this conversation, and I'm hoping the listeners are looking forward to it too. And when I noticed a big jump in my success personally and financially and in my business is when I got my mind right and when I started self-improvement and really focusing on that. And John is a world-renowned specialist in human behavior. He's a researcher, author, a global educator. His education curriculum ranges from corporate empowerment programs, financial empowerment strategies, self-development programs, relationship solutions, and social transformation programs. He's studied over 30,000 books across all the defined academic disciplines and has synthesized the wisdom of the ages, which he shares on stages in over 100 countries. John, thank you again for your time. I'm honored to have you on the show. And I'm you talk about you're expert in self-improvement programs, relationship solutions. All those things are so important. And I would say before we ever start a business.
Well, that's so true because we're not one little area of life. We have all the areas of life that we're here to master. I always say that any area of your life you don't empower, other people will overpower you. If we don't empower ourselves intellectually, we'll be told what to think. If we don't empower ourselves in business, we'll be told what to do. If we don't empower ourselves in finance, we'll be told what we're worth. If we don't empower ourselves in our relationship, we'll be doing the honey-do things all day. If we don't empower ourselves in social, we'll be told the propaganda that we're buying into. If we don't empower ourselves physically, we'll be told what drugs to take and what organs to remove. If we don't empower ourselves spiritually, we may be living in a dogma of antiquated ideas. So we have to be able to be accountable for prioritizing our life and living by what truly inspires and empowers us.
Love it. I couldn't take notes fast enough there. I could not agree more. And I feel like, when I got started in as an entrepreneur anyway, it didn't happen until I got my mind right and until I was just focused and started learning some of those things. And so I'm looking forward to this as well as diving in, just jumping right into your specialty here. But self-development programs to relationship training, whatever it may be, where should we start when we're thinking, that entrepreneur that's listening, that's saying, I just don't know if I can do this, or I don't know if this is the right thing for me, or I can just hear it. And I will tell the listeners as well, John is experienced in real estate. He's had over $20 million in real estate as well. Just an amazing guy and is helping so many people all over the world. But John, where should they start? Like what should we be focusing on to get our ball rolling in the right direction?
Well, it depends on the individual. Every human being has a set of priorities, set of values that they live their life by. And some people's highest values are wealth building. Some people's highest value is business. Some people's highest value is raising a beautiful family. Some people's highest values are social causes. Some are physical health and fitness. Some are spiritual quest. Some are intellectual pursuits. You have to be true to yourself about what you're spontaneously dedicated to doing and identify what's really, really, really important and valuable to you as a starting point to know yourself, to know where your strengths and your core competence. And I always say you got to start with what you know and let what you know grow. You got to start there. Because many times people compare themselves to others, put people on pedestals, and are too humble to admit what they see in them, these people inside themselves, and then envy them and try to imitate them and lose themselves in the pursuit of trying to be inauthentic, trying to get rich quick or trying to get, some success quick. And immediate gratification usually costs them their life and not long-term vision, which pays them. So finding out what's core in their life, what's truly deeply meaningful, what's truly inspiring to them, and set sail as captain of their ship around that, master their fate around that. It increases the probability of them being a master of their destiny, not a victim of their history. It increases the probability of them having momentum building, sustainable action steps that are prioritized towards an achievable end if they get clear about what they really, really, really want and not try other people's clothes on and trying to be somebody else. If we're, as Einstein said, when you're a cat expecting to swim like a fish, you'll beat yourself up. And if you're a fish expecting to climb a tree like a cat, you're going to beat yourself up. But if you honor yourself for who you are, the magnificence of who you are, you won't live in insignificance.
It's so hard not to compare ourselves to others, right? I mean, isn't it? It's so difficult, and I try to tell my boys that as well as they compare themselves to each other. But getting clear on what we're passionate about or what we're driven by. What are some tips to be able to do that? Because I could say, well, okay, I have this passion over here, but it may not have anything to do with my business.
Well, I've been asking people for over 42. I've been teaching 47 years. 42 years I've been involved in studying human values and human drive. And if you ask an individual what it is that's important to them, most of the time, 99% of the time, it's skewed. I'll give you an example. I was standing in South Africa, and I was speaking on a Success Summit with Richard Branson, and we had thousands of people in the audience. And I said, how many of you would love to be financially independent? And every hand went up. And then I asked, how many of you are financially independent? And most of the hands went down. And I said, okay, I got a question for you. I'm going to ask you to do something. I want you to pull out a piece of paper. I'm going to give you 10 million US dollars. I'm just going to give you, that's your gift. And I want you to, now you got 1 minute to decide what are the 10 things you're going to do if you were handed $10 million right now. What are you going to do with it? And you got 1 minute to quickly write it down, the 10 things you would do. And I gave them 1 minute, and we timed it. We had a timer going, and we went boom, and they'd write down the 10 things they would do if they had $10 million all of a sudden. And I had them write that down, and then they had to share it with the person next to them. And then the other person would have to calculate how much of that 10 million is left as something that's usable for buying assets. And it ranged between 20 and 80%. Up to, in 1 minute, in some people's case, 80% of what they had was spent on consumables that depreciated in value. And these are the people that will never become financially independent unless they have a change in values. And the people that actually bought something that went up in value, the assets, they're the people that are probably going to work towards financial independence. And there was only 7 people in the room out of thousands of people that actually only bought things that went up in value. And they were the people that were already financially independent. So the hierarchy of one's values dictates their financial destiny. And most people think they want to be financially independent, but what they do is they filter their reality through living vicariously through the lifestyles of the rich and famous, spending and consuming depreciable things that go down in value. And they become slaves to money instead of masters because they're working for money instead of having money work for them. And so first you need to know what their highest values are if you want to get ahead financially. And that's what I eventually had to discern. What are the objective ways to do that? If I could share this.
Wow. I love that exercise. That's really good to help people think through that. What is most important to them? Yeah. So only 7 people, I mean, out of thousands. And so what about the rest of them? How, since most of us are probably part of those other, the other that are not part of the 7, how do we help ourselves?
Well, the first thing is to identify where wealth building is on your values. Because, if you receive so much money in a month, based on what your values are, you're going to spend it according to what you value. So if you have a higher value on buying Jimmy Choo shoes, for instance, than you do in buying a property that's going to give you real estate passive income, then you're going to keep spending it on things that go down in values because your hierarchy of values is dictating how you make decisions in life. It determines your perception, decisions, and actions in life. So I look at how to determine a person's values and find out where wealth building is first, to find out the probability of them actually sustaining the action steps that will actually create the wealth they want. Because a lot of people have fantasies about doing it and then they drop out. That's the key. So I first look at how people fill their space, because things that are really, really important to them, they keep proximal to them, close to them, and things that are really unimportant to them, they push away. So I look at what we fill our space with. What do we spend? Wherever we spend most of our time, what's mostly within our reach that we keep in our space? Is it our computers, our cell phone? What is it? And what's the primary use of it? And what's the primary purpose of those items? Then I look at how they spend their time. They make time, find time, spend time on things that are extremely valuable to them. And I look carefully at what their life is really objectively demonstrating on how they spend their time. Mine is researching and teaching, obviously, and traveling. The next one is, what is it that energizes you? When you're doing something that's really high in your value, you have more energy at the end of the day than when you started. And it gives you energy. But if you're doing something low on your values, it goes down. The next one is, where do you put your money? If you look at where your money goes, it tells you what's important to you. So if you keep buying your clothes or you keep buying depreciables and you really want those things, you don't want wealth. So you got to look at what's really honestly where your money's going. 53% of the gross income of my business, my entire business, has gone to real estate or cash or reserves or stocks or buying companies or whatever. I have a value and wealth plan. That's why I'm financially independent. So the next one is, what is it you're most organized and ordered in? And where do you have a lot of order and organization and structure? That tells you what you value. And money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most, and from those who have the least order and organization to those who have the most organization around it. Then I look at what is your discipline and reliable and focused on. What do you spontaneously do that nobody ever has to remind you to do? That tells you what's valuable to you. And the next one is, what are you thinking about? What are you visualizing? And what are you internally dialoguing to yourself about how you would love your life to be? That's showing true evidence of coming true. There's actual evidence that you're making progress on it. Because a lot of fantasies are things that are, whims in your mind, but there's no actions, there's no fruitful outcome. If you're seeing evidence of it, it means it's important enough for you to keep going on it. The next one is, what do you love to converse with other people about most? What do you want to talk to people about most? People come up to you and said, how's your kids, or how's your investments, or how's your business, or how's your health? What do you talk about most? That tells you what's valuable to you. The next one is, what is the most consistent, persistent goals that you've had that you haven't let yourself down on, that you persisted on, that you actually have results on? What's the common threads to them? And what inspires you is the next one. What is it that's inspiring you, and who are the people that really inspire you in your life that you aspire to be like? And the last one is, what do you love studying about, reading about, learning about, spontaneously looking up on YouTube, etc.? What do you love to learn and feed your mind with? You will find that the answers to these 13 questions will reiterate themselves and reveal by priority what's really important to you based on what your life demonstrates, not by your idealisms, not by the social injections, but by what's really truly demonstrated in your life. And that's the starting point to start building a foundation of building momentum in a career path. We use this in many universities. Determining their values is the key to career paths and wealth building paths. Because people that do not have wealth building even on that list, I've gone through 30 billionaires. I've gone to people who live in townships. I've done evaluations on values, and there's a distinct difference in their values and what they spend their money on. And people that have a value on wealth building are the ones that get there. People that don't have a value on it, they keep buying other things, and they keep going down in value, and they learn a lesson.
Wow. I got 11 of them wrote down. I was trying to take notes. Awesome stuff.
The thought, the vision, and the internal dialogue, you probably put as one, but that's actually 3.
Wow. Okay. Good stuff, John. I mean, that just going through that list alone is going to help us to think about where we're at, or like you said, what's most important to us, where our goals are, what's inspiring us, who's inspiring us, and help us. So, let's say we do that, but then we see that, okay, I don't have the correct things on this list. I've got, I am wanting to buy the purses or the shoes or the cars or whatever it is, that's been our focus. I mean, it's hard to change that, isn't it? When you're thinking about that every day. Your
values are evolving. When you're 0 to 10, you probably want to play. When you're 10 to 20, you probably want to socialize. When you're 20 to 30, you probably want to find a relationship and a career path. When you're 30 to 40, you probably want to have a marriage and your own business. 40 to 50, you probably want to have an affair. That's a joke. But there's different things that you do decade by decade, and there's a tweaking along the way, or cataclysmic events that can change those. But you can stack up and associate new associations in your brain. I've trained thousands of people on how to do this, to increase the probability of having wealth building and being high enough on your value list to actually do the action steps that give you a result. But if you don't have enough value, see, every decision you make is based on what will give you the greatest advantage over disadvantages in your mind at that moment. And if you don't have more advantages to buying assets that give you an accumulation of wealth, and you have a higher value and more advantages out of buying immediate gratifications, then the second you get money, it's going to go to that. And you're not going to ever have money working for you. So we can stack up the associations and get the benefits of long-term And I've trained thousands of people on how to do it. It's very easy to do. And there's 6 steps that I found common to people who are billionaires. I don't know if it would be sharing those would be worth it, but
Sure. Yeah, let's hear it.
These are 6 things that I found in very wealthy billionaires, 30 billionaires that I've interviewed. I live on a ship called the World, and there's a lot of billionaires that live on this ship. And I've interviewed quite a number of them. And here's the things that I found common to all 6. And one of them I got from the Book of Wealth originally by Hubert Hal Bancroft, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner, which is a masterpiece if anybody gets a chance to read this. But one of them is that they feel by divine providence or human sovereignty, they feel destined to serve vast numbers of people. They really have a desire to be of service. Now, when I was listening to that guy, Matt Seamus, that was doing the interview, I got the impression he really cared about people and he wanted to serve them. He wanted to have an equitable, sustainable relationship with people. And that's a crucial component because even in real estate or wealth building, if you're not serving people, you have no source of income. You got to care enough about human beings to be contributive in a sustainable, equitable, and equanimity-based way.
That's right.
So one is you feel called to serve vast numbers of people. There's a yearning. So if you write down the benefits of in your life, to your life, of serving vast numbers of people, and just start keeping an inventory on a computer of hundreds of benefits of doing that and what that will do to your life, that's one. But one of them is building a business that serves vast numbers of people. Because the vast fortune is going to be based on the size of the vision of the contribution you make and the size of what you see for yourself. If you believe that you can, buy a property and rent it out and you get a little private income, that means you're serving one individual, the rental person, and you may be employing people. But if you're thinking on a longer term and a bigger term and a vision, the bigger the problems you solve and the more people you serve, the more income you have the capacity to generate. So it's building a business, which is a fair exchange with people that serves vast numbers of people. And write down 200 benefits to yourself of doing that and having a commitment to that. And once the benefits stack up higher than the alternatives in your life, you start noticing that you're now yearning to want to go and do that, which is essential to know that you care about people. Because people, I always say, if you're poor, it's because you're not caring about people. You care about people, you're directly or indirectly trying to find and solve a need for people. The second one on the 6 is managing the business effectively and efficiently by priority and by core competencies focus to be able to maximize profits. So you're actually able to pay the employees their best returns for their effort, and you're able to save the customers the best product in most effective and efficient way. So it's working on the business, not in the business, effectively and efficiently, consistently, in a way that you care about your employees and care about the customers. And ultimately, that's how you get to be cared for yourself. And 200 benefits of doing that, looking about it, learning about Parkinson's law and efficiencies and prioritizations and delegations and how to use time effectively. Bill Gates is a great example that he asks himself on a daily basis, what is the absolute highest priority thing I can do today with the resources I have that serve the greatest number of people, the most effective and efficient way, in a way that inspires me? That's a great question to ask every day. The third thing is to save an ever-progressive portion of the profits, to maximally squeeze out, to make yourself more efficient, to a profit, so you actually build up a cushion. I think it was Seamus that showed how important it was to have a cushion. And the top 100 companies have large cushions, at least 40% of the gross income of the year, up to 100% or more. But cash cushions to make sure that they're not emotional and they're strategic and they maintain objectivity, not subjectivity. And make sure that they build up a cushion, so because the people with the cash and the people who have that are the people who can take advantages of the cycles of the crash. They can also basically not have emotions and they can qualify the clients that they work with. And put 200 benefits of doing that. Then 200 benefits of accumulating, investing in ever greater degrees of leverage. And this is learning the art. I'm sure you've mastered that. Learning the art of leveraging through partnerships, through banking industries, through higher class investments, but learning the art by building brands like Trump had done, and I've done, but basically going and building a leveraging mechanism and capitalizing on stair-stepping nested hierarchies of leveraging. So you can basically maximize your returns and you actually make yourself work more efficiently as you go along. Number 5, there's 200 benefits of that. And 200 benefits then of accumulating a vast fortune and building wealth. Because if you don't, you'll just buy clutter. You'll fill your house with stuff because you don't have any cause for that. And 200 benefits of building a fortune. And then the next one is 200 benefits of creating a financial cause that leaves a legacy, something that gives you a reason to get up. Because if you don't have a greater cause ever growing, the plateauing of money can occur in your life and you go, okay, I've got to, I don't have to work. And then you can get into debauchery instead of philanthropy. So finding a cause that inspires you, that's greater than yourself, that builds a fortune. And I found those 6 things common in the wealthiest billionaires that I've interacted with.
So they write down the 200 benefits of each of those things.
To raise the value of wealth building in their life, so they have some reason for doing it. Because if they don't, it's a whim, it's a temporary little thing, it's a side venture instead of a real cause. The greater the reason for doing it, that when your why is big enough, the house take care of themselves.
I was doing some research on you, and I heard you say that in a different video, and I wrote it down, and I wanted to bring it up. I'm glad you just said it. That was perfect timing, because I was going to quote you saying that, but you beat me to it. But no, I couldn't agree more. And personally, I've just seen it myself. You know, when it became big enough, it's like, okay, you know, that's what our focus can be, and other things start to happen. You know, so awesome. Well, I don't even know where to go after that, John. That's incredible. If we could do those things and write down, it's going to change our mindset, no doubt. Just going through that process alone, it's going to help us to think probably a lot differently.
Also, there's 2 things that I tell people, that I always say, that there's nothing missing in us. We just think there's missing because we keep comparing ourselves to other people. But to look at where your hidden assets are in life. Everybody has hidden assets. Sometimes it's intellectual property, sometimes it's social contacts, sometimes it's inspiration, sometimes it's knowledge, sometimes it's their charisma, their social charisma, sometimes it's their beauty. But everybody can capitalize on hidden assets. It's wise to go around the 7 areas of life and look at where hidden assets are, and then ask yourself how to convert those into liquid assets, because there's a lot of value in that. I'll give you an example. I had a lady that worked for the Chamber of Commerce in a city, and she was making $45,000 a year, a very small income, just doing social events for the chambers. But in the meantime, she was meeting everybody and anybody in that town that had power. I mean, it was amazing who she was meeting, the movers and shakers. But she was never leveraging it. And she said, but I feel like I'm working my butt off and I'm not getting a lot of return out of it. And I said, well, you haven't had a value in wealth building. So we stacked up the values of it. She got new creative ideas, because whatever's highest on our values, where our innovation and creativity comes from. And all of a sudden we came up with an idea. We created a company called the Liaison Group, and she organized some non-disclosures and some no competition documents and things like that. And then what she did is she went, and every time she was giving people's names to people that were closing big multi-million-dollar deals, instead of giving them away, because she knew the people and led them to the right people, she got in on the deals. And she went from 45,000 to 700,000 in 1 year, 700,000 closing deals, because now she realized she was capitalizing her social cash, her social wealth. There's genuine wealth, there's financial wealth, but there's intellectual wealth. I've got a lot of intellectual property that I sell. There's others that's social contacts, amazing contacts. You get leverage out of that. So you want to look and make sure you're not throwing away capital that can be converted into financial capital. So going through and doing an inventory on hidden assets and make them revealed assets and turn into liquid financial assets is a good exercise. And one thing I just thought of that would really be helpful probably for everybody is, as you're going through, you're educating people and you're inspiring people, because I was educated and inspired by watching 2 of your podcasts. They're very inspiring. And I was just sitting there taking notes. I mean, I've got notepads here, taking notes on them. And I'm thinking, wow, anything that is proven, that are absolute gems that work in the industry of the syndicated investments, or the multi-family unit investments, the apartments, the condos, whatever. Anything that is proven to work by everybody that comes on those and talks about it, if you take those and list those, and then link those to your highest values by asking how specifically is doing this checklist, this action step that is proven to work, the gold mines, the golden gems of daily actions, how specifically is it helping me fulfill what is deeply meaningful to me? The more you make the links, the higher the probability that the checklist will be checked off every day. And you'll have a higher probability of sustainable, high priority actions that build momentum to achieve the financial goals that you set out for.
Wow. I love how you talked about the example of the hidden assets though as well. I could relate to that. But what I wanted to ask you about that is how, if she didn't have you, let's say there's somebody, you didn't see that in her, how do we find those? How do we, kind of break those blinders off, right? I mean, to see that value is even there.
One of the little exercise I do with clients in my program, my signature program, the Breakthrough Experience, which I've done 1,094 times around the world, is what I call owning the traits of the greats. What you do is you take the most powerful people on the planet in each of the areas of life that you endeavor to master, and make a list of every trait, action, or inaction, things they do or don't do that you look up to and go, wow, that's amazing skills. Their discipline, their perseverance, their drive, their vision, whatever it may be. And go and make a list of what it is, and then go inside yourself and ask this question. Where and when do I display and demonstrate that same specific trait, action, or inaction inside myself? And where was it? Who did I demonstrate it to? Who perceives me that? When did I do it? And document that there's nothing missing in you. You have it in a different form. See, I don't have a workout. I don't go to the gym every day. I do little push-ups and sit-ups and some things and some surfing occasionally. I surf the North Shore of Oahu in November at Pipeline. So, okay, I'm a surfer guy. So in the process of doing it, I go in there and I take something that I admire in somebody. The illusion is I need to develop that. The reality is you have it already in another area, what's in the area of your highest values, but you don't have their values. That's why you're not disciplined in their areas. But if you go and find out where you have it in yours, you won't come from the idea that I'm missing it and that I have something lacking. I just have a different set of values. And if I shift my values, I can excel in that same area. So go in there, and I call it owning the traits of the greats. Because if you find out that you have everything that you see in them to the same degree, quantitatively and qualitatively, you won't be living in their shadow. You'll be standing on their shoulders. And you'll build momentum and play in a new field of possibility. I've done this with celebrities. I've done it with business people, financial people, all different types of people. I've seen it in young people rising up in power. There's nothing missing in us. We're just not honoring the form because we're a cat expecting to swim like a fish sometimes. And this is the thing. That's why envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide, as Emerson said. And Einstein said, my contempt for authority is what made me one. Instead of sitting and looking up to authority, which in a sense robs you of your creativity and your confidence, you go in there and identify, where do I have what I see in them? Because it's not missing. If a person does that, they'll play in a new field of possibility. Absolutely play in a new field. And new opportunities will come to them. And people that are normally playing in bigger leagues show up in their life and give them bigger opportunities.
Makes you walk differently, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
John, it's just incredible. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time. Is there anything you'd like to leave the listeners with right before we have to go?
Money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. If you have order and organization and put your financial house together and know exactly where you are, exactly where you want to be, what does financial independence represent to you, and how you're going to get there, you have a higher probability of getting that outcome. You need to know what your assets are. You need to know what your liabilities are. You need to know what your net worth is. You need to know what exactly you want to live on passively to live the lifestyle you dream about, be real about it. You need to know what the actual returns for the investments that you are pursuing, and you know what those real returns are, not highs, but the real means, the real average on a conservative basis, you get real. That's after all the challenges. You need to know what the inflation rate is. You need to know exactly what the total net worth is you have earning that interest rate minus that inflation rate to give you an exact number that you're targeting. And then you need to have a strategy. And that's where people like yourself can go in and give them a strategy and the ways of doing it. You can give them the investments. But giving them a strategy, then they need to have that strategy, those action steps linked to what they value most, so they have the highest probability of living by priority and achieving that and building momentum to have that outcome.
John, Thank you so much. I know this is going to be a show I'm going to personally go back and listen to probably numerous times. Cannot thank you enough for the value you've provided. I hope the listeners will also go and check you out at your website and learn more about you as well, and we're going to tell them how to do that. But first, tell us how you like to give back.
What I do is my philanthropic ideas, I'm involved in education. I'm an educator. So I love helping youth primarily in educations. I do a lot of educational systems in places in Africa or sometimes in Asia, because I was a homeless kid and a street kid as a kid. I don't know if you know that. I was a dropout of school. I never finished high school. I was blessed to meet a gentleman when I was 17 years old that turned my life around. One man in 1 hour, one message, one day, just absolutely changed my life. And I love doing that, making a difference and doing everything I can to learn as much as I can and share as much as I can to make a difference in young people, because they're the people that are going to run this world in the future. So that's where I put a lot of philanthropy.
Love that. Love that. Just the mindset of always giving back and being focused on that. So how can people get in touch with you and learn more about you?
They can simply go to my website, drdemartini.com. Just drdemartini.com. And by the way, on there is a complimentary value determination process. So they can go on there. It's private. It takes them 30 minutes. It'll help them narrow down what the values in their life is, and that they can start structuring life. Because if you're not filling your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it's going to fill up with low priority distractions that don't. One's going to raise your self-worth. One's going to undermine it. So go on and take advantage of it. It's complimentary. It's private. You can do it again and watch it over your own life and watch it evolve. But that'll be very helpful, I promise, in the endeavor of mastering not only your life mastery, but also your wealth mastery.
Thank you for the value you've provided. I hope the listeners will go there. I'm going to go check it out myself.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.